Has our government become a crime syndicate? Well, it's with this cheery question that we want to begin today's topic, and that is, are our elections fair anymore? Are our elections legal anymore? Are our elections constitutional anymore? And the reason I ask that is because there have been so many things in the news lately that have indicated that perhaps our elections have been compromised to a degree that you cannot trust the results. And this is being intentionally done. Just last week in Virginia, a federal judge declared that their removal of 1,600 illegal voters was to be overturned, and that these 1,600 illegal voters were to be allowed to vote. Think about that for a moment. A judge requiring voting officials to break the laws of both the states, of the state of Virginia and of the United States of America. Well, this isn't the first time that's happened, is it? This is just the latest of a series of examples of what's happening in our federal judicial system. And it shouldn't surprise us. Our federal judges are largely political appointees. They're put there not because of their legal expertise usually, but because of their allegiance to the one who put them in that position of power. But it's not just the judges, is it? In California, on September the 30th, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, issued a decree outlining the identification of voters at the polls. So in other words, if somebody is sitting at the polls and doing their constitutionally sworn duty by making sure that the one who's giving the vote is the same one they're representing themselves to be, they're guilty of a crime. Or if that election official tries to just find out if they even have a legal right to vote, if they're even a citizen of the United States, that official, not the person casting the illegal vote, but that official is guilty of a crime. What's happened in America? Go back to the 1930s and imagine this. You've got Al Capone, who is in charge of Chicago, and he brings in a bunch of voters from Detroit, and he gives them fake IDs so that these voters can come in and they can vote for the man that he wants to be mayor. Or he gives the IDs to people from Chicago to allow them to vote multiple times. Wouldn't our law enforcement agencies be interested in that? Or how about this? How about if Russia was found to be bringing people into our country illegally for the express purpose of voting in our elections? Do you think that the American justice system would be interested in that? Well, in each instance, whether we're talking about Al Capone and his antics in order to get his people elected, or an enemy trying to get somebody that was more sympathetic to them elected, or whether we're talking about officials, corrupt officials in the United States, from judges to governors to senators to even presidents, doing everything they can to make sure that our voting system is compromised, and doing everything within their power to make sure that illegal people can vote in the election. People who are not even citizens can choose the President of the United States of America and senators and congressmen. When you look at it that way, you have to admit that if we have not become a crime syndicate as far as the United States government, that many parts of that government are little more than a crime syndicate. And the sad thing is we're letting them get away with it. We don't demand change. Or when we do demand change and then they overturn that change, we do nothing about it. You see, what Governor Newsom did in California was to overturn a vote by the citizens of his state, specifically in Compton, to make sure that those who were voting in the election had a legal right to do so. And the governor of the state of California said, no, we do not want to make sure that people have a legal right to do so. Why would he do that? What would his possible motives be? Well, he said he wanted our elections to be free from any kind of pressure from the election officials, but that's ridiculous. You can't drive in California without a driver's license unless you claim to be illegal. Then they'll let you go on. They might even give you a license. They'll do that in a number of states. But if a U.S. citizen born in the United States of America tries to drive without a license, let's see how far they can get before they end up in prison. We ID people for purchases of alcohol and tobacco. In the states that have legalized drugs, they require IDs for them to be able to purchase those drugs. You see, they see the benefit of making sure that the person purchasing these products has a right to be purchasing these products, even though this is just on an individual basis, just one person doing this. But now we've ensured that millions of people can vote illegally in order to corrupt the election system. We've not been able to be sure if our last several elections have been fair, have we? There's not only been all sorts of rumors of illegals voting, but there's been proof of that happening as well. And most American citizens can't be bothered. They're so distracted with just making a living, or maybe they're just distracted by the substances they're consuming, or maybe what's happening is that their people are getting in office and they don't care how that happens. And so an entire nation becomes compromised and involved with crime. And it becomes something very much akin to Chicago in the 1930s or New York City at the same time, and other decades in addition to that, where organized crime took over and the people in the neighborhoods permitted it because they got certain benefits from that, or because they were afraid to say anything. I think there's too many people in America who are afraid to say anything. They see outrageous things like that. They see the Constitution being broken by officials who have sworn an oath that they will uphold that Constitution. They should be impeached and imprisoned for what they're doing. But our other elected officials don't do anything about it. You might think, well, the other side will take care of it. They might talk about it, but they do not take care of it. Think about that for a moment. Why wouldn't they, if they had an opportunity to prosecute somebody who had violated their oath of office? Why wouldn't they do that? Unless maybe they were on the same side. Unless maybe they were part of the organized crime that's going on right now at the highest levels of our government. America has a problem, but the problem doesn't stem from illegal elections. That's a symptom. More and more, America is becoming a godless nation, a nation that is no longer Christian in character, a nation that no longer demands Christian virtues of those that they elect for the highest office. And because of that, we've become compromised. And because of that, I believe God has given us over to the wicked officials that we have. So it's happened before in history. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 8, it says, if you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things, for one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are others higher still. The corruption runs deep, and because the corruption runs deep, we lose our rights, we lose justice, and it shouldn't surprise us. It's been going on for thousands of years. but it should sadden us, and it ought to make us mad, and it ought to prompt us to do something about it. What are you doing about it? Are you at least praying to God for intervention? If not, let me encourage you to start doing that right now. I believe we need a turning back to God very quickly in America, or we are going to be entirely a nation that is run by organized crime, only they call themselves the government. And woe to us if that actually happens. Well, again, this is one of those that wasn't particularly cheery, was it? But I do believe it's something that we need to be seriously considering. And we certainly need to be praying to God for wisdom as to what to do about it. I'm not saying that we turn to violence or anything like that, but I am saying that we do what we can, and that we at least be thinking about what we might be able to do, and that we start praying to God for His help. That's the message for today. I hope it gives you something to think about. We're just a little over a week away from our election, and I think we need to be praying to God that His will be done in this, and that those who are involved, both secretly and openly, in the corruption that we have within our government are brought to justice and removed from their positions of authority and replaced by people who will be righteous in their conduct. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope we'll see you next time. God bless.